Welcome back to Notre Dame Day. Our next guest is a 1949 graduate of the University of Notre Dame. He served Notre Dame for 44 years. That's right, 44 years as the university photographer. He had a front row seat to all 35 years of Father Ted's presidency. Joining us now is Bruce Harlan. Bruce, welcome to Notre Dame Day.
Thank you, Emily.
We love to have you here. Thanks for being with us. And we want to start with a story, one I'm not sure that many were aware of, and this story is about Father Ted and his Nixon coffee cup. What can you tell us about that?
Well, let me tell you a little backstory first. Father was appointed to the Civil Rights Commission by Dwight Eisenhower and moved up the ranks until he was with Nixon. And they kind of knocked heads together and didn't get along at all, and Nixon fired him. And Father Ted's quote was, "They fired me with enthusiasm." So with that, about a month later, I was in his office, and he was drinking coffee out of his cup. And I looked at the cup, and it was painted on the side a $3 bill with Nixon's picture in the center. And I kind of chuckled, and I said, "Where did you get that?" And he said, "Oh, one of the trustees sent it to me." I said, "You know that's got to go for the pictures." He just smiled, and when he was through, I took the cup, put it on a shelf. And every time I went in there afterward, that's the first thing I looked for.
Is the coffee cup.
The coffee cup. That was not a good thing.
Well, the University Archives has been kind enough to provide us with a number of photos of Father Ted, and I believe you took all but one of them.
All but one.
Wow. Well, why don't we go through them, and maybe you can give us some context to each of those. All right, our first one, that's a beautiful photo there.
Thank you. That was requested by one of our trustees, actually two, Fritz and Millie Kaiser out of Tucson, Arizona. He was a professional photographer. She was an artist. He called me one day and he said, "I would like a picture, 3/4 view of Father Ted for Millie to do a bas relief." And he said, "Can you do it without him knowing why?" And I said, "Sure." So probably the next week I was over there, and I thought I ought to do this right now. So I was looking at a book and mentioned it. He came over, and I just got him in the right spot. And I said, "Hey, I like that. Hang on." And that was the picture that I took, and he used it for his official picture for about 10 years.
Wow. And now this next one we're going to see, it has a striking resemblance to the world's most interesting man, which many would say was.
This was a surprise to me. I was waiting for an assignment over there, and he just walked in. He looked at me and he said, "What do you think?" I said, "You look tremendous." He had a very handsome mind, and just a super guy, really.
And let's see, this next one is a Father Ted signing a beam there.
That is the topping out ceremony for his library. The last beam that is put in any building is usually signed by the president or the CEO. And he signed it and put a little Latin inscription along the beam too. So that was about 1960, I believe. Wow,
okay. And let's see, this next one is pretty unique there.
In the middle is Pat O'Brien and our illustrious President Reagan, who Pat O'Brien was Rockney, and Reagan was the Gipper in the 1941 film Newt Rockney All-American. Hesburgh is on the left, and on the right is Ed Steffen, who was then chairman of the Board of Trustees.
Wow. All right, and this next one.
Okay, this is the one I did not take. Father was on his way to the Antarctic South Pole. He was chairman of the National Science Foundation, and he called me, and every time he called me, he'd just say, "What are you doing?" in my office. And I said, "I'm just waiting for your call." And I said, "Do I need a camera?" And he said, "No." So I went over, and he said, "I understand I'm going to be in temperatures of 65 below zero, and I want to take pictures." He had a little Minox camera about the size of an old package of gum. He usually had it in his vest pocket. He traveled with it all the time. And he said, "I understand that at 65 below zero, film is kind of like glass." I said, "Yes, it is." I said, "What you need to do is just pull it away from your vest, shoot pictures. You've got maybe 5 minutes, put it back, keep it next to your body, and you'll be fine." And he came back. There were 50 exposures on a roll, and little bitty negatives. And he came back with 4 rolls. That'd be 200 prints. And I shipped them off to New York, had them processed, and they came back. I sent a student over with him, and he called me. He said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I was kind of waiting for your call." And he said, "I want you to see these." So I got over there about 3:30, and we sat and we looked at every picture. He told me everybody's name. I didn't know anybody. And it became about 5:30 in the afternoon, and I said, "Father, I usually call my wife when I'm going to be late. May I do that?" And he looked at his watch. He says, "Oh, it's 5:30. So he said, "Do call her." I did. He left, came back with a package with a little red bow on it. He said, "Here, give this to Juanita." That was it. Nice guy. It was a beautiful sterling silver serving spoon with a Notre Dame emblem on it.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's so generous. All right, let's take a look at this next photo. I love this photo.
That was probably the most relaxed look I've ever seen on him. He called me one day and he said, I just wrote a book, God, Country, and Notre Dame. He said, "They tell me I need a book cover photograph." I said, "Fine." And we wandered around the campus. And we probably shot 3 or 4 locations, but that's the one he liked. And that is currently in the bookstore, God, Country, and Notre Dame.
Wow. And this next photo is Father Ted with another president.
That would be David Eisenhower, and that was in 1960. That was held outside. The first time I think that we did that outside. The weather was good. That helped. And Cardinal Montini was also in that group, who later became Pope Paul VI.
Wow. And Bruce, thank you for sharing all of these great photos with Father Ted. He lived quite the life, and thankfully you were there to capture some of those moments. We have one last question today. What was your relationship like with Father Ted?
Very friendly, just not like an employer-employee relationship. He was a friend, and we talked. He'd ask me about the students, what they were thinking, and so forth. And we could say anything or talk about anything, so just a nice guy.
All right. Well, Bruce, thank you so much for joining us on Notre Dame Day and sharing Father Ted's memory.
My pleasure.
Thank you. All right. Now it's time for a short commercial.